Okay, hello and welcome to the channel. This is Hand to Hand Combat, and I am your host, Husto, and I want to welcome you to the channel. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Today's title is The Ark of the Covenant, Maryam to Ts'iyon Massacre. The Ark of the Covenant, Maryam to Ts'iyon Massacre. Again, I want to welcome you to the channel. I know your time is very valuable. Let's get right into it. What is the Ark of the Covenant? Some of you may have heard this. Might have heard about Raiders of the Lost Ark, the movie, and might have heard about the Ark of the Covenant. Today, I'm going to give you a brief overview of what the Ark of the Covenant is. So, the Ark of the Covenant is a gold-covered wooden chest with lid cover described in the book of Exodus. We're talking about the Bible now. One of the early books of the Old Testament is the book of Exodus, and in there we can find a lot of information about the Ark of the Covenant. The book of Exodus says that it is a wooden chest with lid cover containing the 2 stone tablets of the 10 Commandments. According to the New Testament book of Hebrews, it also contained Aaron's rod and a pot of manna. Okay, we're talking about the Ark of the Covenant, Maryam to Ts'iyon Massacre. The biblical account relates that approximately 1 year after the Israelites' exodus from Egypt, the ark was created according to the pattern given to Moses by God when the Israelites were encamped at the foot of Mount Sinai. Now, we can remember in an earlier podcast where Moses went on top of the mountain, top of Mount Sinai, and received the 10 Commandments from God. We're talking about a later time now, a little bit later. They were camped at the foot of this mountain, and God instructed Moses on how to create the Ark of the Covenant. And in the Bible, we can find very specific measurements and instructions on how to build it. Okay? The gold-plated acacia chest was carried by its staves, the long handles, by the Levites approximately 2,000 cubits. Now, what is a cubit? A cubit is the approximate length from your tip of your finger to your elbow or your forearm. That is a cubit. So the Levites carried the ark or the golden box by the handles or the staves, S-T-A-V-E-S, approximately 2,000 cubits in front of the people when they were on the march or before the Israelite army. So the Levites carried the ark about 2,000 cubits ahead of the rest of the Israelite army and the host of fighting men. When carried, the ark was always hidden under a large veil made of skins and blue cloth, always carefully concealed even from the eyes of the priests and the Levites who carried it. God was said to have spoken with Moses from between the 2 cherubim on the ark's cover. When at rest, the tabernacle was set up and the holy ark placed in it under the veil of the covering, the staves of it crossing the middle sidebars to hold it up off the ground. So we're talking about the most important thing that the Israelites carried with them. Let's look at the biblical account of the construction and the description of the Ark of the Covenant. According to the book of Exodus, God instructed Moses on Mount Sinai during his 40-day stay upon the mountain where God was, and he was shown the pattern for the tabernacle and furnishings of the ark to be made of shittim wood. To house the tablets of stone, Moses instructed Bezalel and Oholiab to construct the ark. The book of Exodus gives detailed instructions on how the ark is to be constructed. It is to be 2.5 cubits in length, 1.5 in breadth, and 1.5 in height. Then it is to be gilded entirely with gold, and a crown or molding of gold is to be put around it. 4 rings of gold are to be attached to its 4 corners, 2 on each side, and through these rings, staves of shittim wood, shittim wood, overlaid with gold for carrying the ark, are to be inserted, and these are not to be removed. We can read in the book of Exodus exact measurements, exact description, exact construction of this Ark of the Covenant. So this is a golden box that was to carry the 10 Commandment stones. So it was basically a mobile vanguard, okay? A mobile vanguard carrying the 10 Commandments. The biblical account continues that after its creation by Moses, the ark was carried by the Israelites during their 40 years of wandering in the desert. Whenever the Israelites camped, the ark was placed in a separate room in a sacred tent called the tabernacle. Now, what has happened throughout history to this Ark of the Covenant? Where is the Ark of the Covenant now? The ark was then captured by the Philistines. Okay, after the Exodus, after the 40 years wandering in the desert, they were destroyed by the Philistines in battle. And the Philistines took the ark to Ashdod and placed it in the temple of Dagon, their fish god temple. Please do your own reading and please do your own homework. These videos are designed for food for thought, for you to do your own homework. Please do your own homework. Please get in the Bible and read what happened to the statue of the fish god Dagon when the Philistines placed the Ark of the Covenant next to their fish god statue. I want you to read what happened to it. The Ark of the Covenant is very, very powerful. So then King David got the ark back. It went to King Solomon. King Solomon had it after that, Solomon's temple. And then about 587 BC, the Babylonians destroyed Jerusalem and destroyed Solomon's temple. And now here we are today, and we don't know where the Ark of the Covenant is. Where is the Ark of the Covenant? Well, possible locations of the golden Ark of the Covenant are Mount Nebo. It's said in the book of Maccabees, the prophet Jeremiah, being warned by God before the Babylonian invasion, took the ark, the tabernacle, and the altar of incense and buried it in a cave in Mount Nebo. That's one possible location. Another one, there's accounts that the golden ark is in Europe. It's in Rome. There's accounts that it's in Egypt. There's accounts that the Ark of the Covenant is in South Africa. But the one that we're going to talk about today is the location in Ethiopia. Ethiopia, it's said that the possible location of the golden Ark of the Covenant is in Ethiopia at a church in Ethiopia. That brings us to the Maryam to Ts'iyon massacre. And I don't know why this isn't hitting the news. The Maryam to Ts'iyon massacre was, according to Europe External Program with Africa, EEPA, a mass murder event that took place on December 15th, 2020, in Axum, Tigray, Ethiopia, during the Tigray War. The account says that this mass murder took place on December 15th or around the 17th through the 20th of December 2020, according to the EEPA. 750 people hiding in the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion, Maryam to Ts'iyon Church, were taken out and shot dead by the Ethiopian National Defense Force and Amhara militias in the square in front of the church. Why isn't this all over the news? An earlier massacre by the EDF, Eritrean Defense Forces, in which the entire city, from the bus station to the park, was covered in bodies, took place in mid-November 2020, according to an EEPA witness. A little bit of background to the Maryam to Ts'iyon massacre. Pro-federal government sources claim that the Ethiopian National Defense Force gained control of Axum Airport on November 11, 2020. Debretsion Gebremichael, head of the Tigray People's Liberation Front in power of the Tigray region prior to the Tigray War, stated on 19 November that fighting was taking place in the town of Axum itself, but the TPLF was still in control of the town. Why isn't this all over the news? EEPA stated that the event on December 15, 2020 started with security forces from the ENDF and Amhara militia approaching the Church of Our Lady of Mary of Zion, Maryam to Ts'iyon, which contained 1,000 people inside and in the surrounding compound. A confrontation occurred due to the people in the church believing that the soldiers wanted to take the, now listen, Ark of the Covenant that the church claims to hold. People exited to the square. The ENDF and Amhara militias started shooting, killing 750 people. With the ban on journalists entering the Tigray region continuing as of January 11, 2021, news of the mid-December church massacre was first provided by survivors arriving in Mekelle after walking by foot about 200 kilometers. It's about 120 miles. Let me repeat this. EEPA stated that the event on December 15th, 2020 started with security forces from the ENDF and Amhara militia approaching the Church of Our Lady of Mary of Zion, which contained 1,000 people inside and in the surrounding compound. A confrontation occurred due to the people in the church believing that the soldiers wanted to take the Ark of the Covenant. Listen to me very carefully. The Ark of the Covenant is very, very powerful. And whoever holds the Ark of the Covenant holds a lot of power. But understand this: God is not mocked, and you do not take what is God's. Please do your own homework. Please do your own reading. I pray for power for you listeners. I pray that the fear tactics will not work against you listeners. I want to thank you for your time. I know your time is very valuable. This is Hand-to-Hand Combat. Today's title was The Ark of the Covenant, Maryam to Ts'iyon Massacre. Thank you for your time.